2025. I am your moderator, Ms. Shanika Haynes. Joining today's press conference is Mr. Aubrey C. Norton, leader of the People's National Congress Reform and a Partnership for National Unity. The press statement will be read by the leader.
APNU calls for independent review of mining safety, release of 2022 census data, and urgent electoral reform based on nationwide public feedback. A Partnership for National Unity is concerned that Ghana's governance systems responsible for public safety, national data management, and electoral credibility are failing in critical areas. APNU's recent community outreach, combined with reports from workers, observer missions, and independent stakeholders, reveal critical gaps in oversight and accountability that threatens the well-being of citizens and are a manifestation of the lack of democracy. In the key areas of mining safety, national statistics, and electoral reform, it is evident that the Guyanese people are extremely frustrated by the government's ongoing neglect, lack of transparency, and outright refusal to confront these fundamental issues. APNU asserts that these challenges require immediate and transparent action guided by an unwavering commitment to the nation's well-being. National mining safety and worker protection. APNU is alarmed at the disturbing and independently corroborated allegation raised by workers within the Aurora gold mines. These reports describe hazardous underground working conditions, insufficient protective gear, unhygienic accommodation, inconsistent wage payments, and discriminatory treatment meted out to Guyanese workers in comparison to the condition enjoyed by foreign employees. Public video testimonials, earlier grievances, and recurrent incidents over the last 2 decades all point to systemic weaknesses that the PPP government has failed consistently to address. This situation,
Mr. Lord, good morning. The audio quality is extremely poor.
This situation cannot be reviewed.
Thank you, then. It needs to be, let them raise it. Thank you, Dennis.
This situation.
I need to put the mic next to his mouth because we got here and it's very.
But the mic is right here.
Yeah, you got the mic slip up. It's all right. I think it's the operator. Or...
What we're hearing, they're hearing it.
The operator got to adjust the volume.
This situation cannot be viewed in isolation. Over the past several years, there have been several fatal pit collapses, accidents on mining operation, and allegation of environmental and occupational violations. Across Guyana's interior mining regions, repeated fatal pit collapses have been documented over the past decades in Peroni, Kamong, Region 7. Several pit failures between 2022 and 2025 resulted in miners being buried and killed. In 2015, the Cameroon Pepper Creek area in Region 8 experienced one of Guyana's worst mining disasters, which killed at least 10 miners, followed by another deadly collapse in 2016. Investigations determined that negligence, unsafe pit design, and widespread unsafe practices are prevalent across medium and small-scale mining. Throughout the Region 8 interior belt from Cameroon through Madia and Upper Mazaruni, official reports identified recurring hazards such as steep pit walls, weak soils, over-excavation, and poor enforcement. When taken together, these incidents expose a pattern of systemic safety failures and a regulatory framework incapable of protecting workers in one of the country's most dangerous sectors. No volume of production or level of profit can ever justify conditions that put Guyanese lives at risk. Safety is a national obligation. Guyanese workers must never be treated as expendable Foreign investors must be required to treat Guyanese workers with dignity and respect and operate within the confines of the law. The recurring complaint from mining workers make one thing clear. The problem is not Aurora gold mines alone. The problem is a broken enforcement system that the government refuses to fix. APNU demands 1. A fully independent investigation into AGM and its subcontractors. 2. A national mining safety audit. 3. Strict enforcement and meaningful accountability. The 2022 census delay, a failure of transparency and national management. Enumeration for the 2022 census began on 15 September 2022, following Guyana's standard 10-year national cycle. The previous census was conducted in 2012, making the 2022 exercise essential for upgrading the country's demographic, social, and economic baseline. Under Guyana's law, the release of census data is not optional. The Statistics Act 1965, Chapter 1909, and the Population and Housing Census Act 1998 require the Bureau of Statistics to collect, analyze, and publish national statistical information, including census results. Publishing this data is necessary to ensure transparency, proper planning, and good governance. Despite these clear legal obligations, the PPP has deliberately refused to release the 2022 population and housing census results. This is a cause for public concern. The 2022 census should have already provided Guyana with a full and accurate national profile. Yet more than 3 years later, not even a preliminary report has been released. Census data is the backbone of national planning. Without access to reliable census results, stakeholders across Guyana cannot make informed decisions. It is the APNU's considered opinion that the census is being deliberately withheld to give the PPP a political advantage over other parties, as accurate population figures are critical for political planning, strategic decision-making, and ensuring a free, competitive, and democratic environment. APNU places on record that not withholding of Guyana, APNU places on record that withholding a Guyana $2 billion taxpayer-funded census for partisan benefits amongst the institutional corruption, as public resources are being manipulated for the PPP's political purposes rather than for the country's development. By refusing to publish the census, the PPP has created a vacuum that leaves businesses, NGOs, civil society, and international institutions without the national data required for planning, accountability, and development. This deliberate withholding of national statistics undermines transparency, weakens institutional credibility, and erodes public trust. 3 years without census data is not a delay. It is a profound failure of governance that undermines every national decision. A Guyana 2 billion census cannot vanish into silence. Guyanese deserve answers, transparency, and the immediate release of the 2022 census results. APNU demands 1, immediate publication of the 2022 census report. 2, a transparent breakdown of census expenditures. 3, a detailed explanation for the delays and a timetable for completion. 4, stronger institutional safeguards for future censuses. Public feedback calls for electoral reform, clean voters lists, biometrics, and transparency. During its regular community outreach exercises, APNU encountered widespread concern about the bloated voters list, the absence of biometric identification, and structural weaknesses in the electoral processes highlighted in the European Election Observation Mission report on the 2025 elections. Citizens have expressed frustration that these vulnerabilities continue to exist without any indication that the PPP intends to take action to correct them. A credible election cannot be built on a bloated list. Guyanese are demanding a clean list, biometrics, and a system that they can trust. Given the serious shortcomings pointed out by the EU, the PPP cannot claim democratic legitimacy while refusing the reforms every citizen is calling for. APNU calls for a clean voters list, biometric verification at every stage, a fully independent, professional, and well-resourced GCOM, transparent and auditable procedures aligned with international standards. In conclusion, APNU remains committed to good governance, transparency, accountability, and the protection of the rights of all Guyanese citizens. The disturbing allegations of deplorable working conditions in the mining sector, the unacceptable delay in release in the 2022 census, and the strong public demand for electoral reform all highlight national weaknesses that must be confronted without delay. APNU stands ready to work with all stakeholders to advance reforms, protect lives, safeguard public resources, and strengthen democracy in Guyana. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we'll take questions on the press statement, of course, by the raise of hand, and you do state your media house name. Mr. Adam Harris.
A very good morning, everybody. I did not hear most of what the Honorable Leader was saying. I heard him talk about the release of the census. Sir, can you say if the government is compelled to release the findings of the census?
Yes, the law.
Is that?
Yes, the law states that, and that was mentioned in the press statement.
So, if the law says this, sir, is there a timeline in which the results should be released?
Well, it is obvious to me that from previous censuses, that immediately on completion of the census, assuming it is completed in a stipulated time, then it should be released in a timely fashion. I am not aware that the law states specifically, say, a month or 2 months, but what I'm aware is that they're obligated to report on it, and that 3 years cannot be inadequate time for them to release the census.
Thank you. Questions on the press statement?
Yes, sorry. I ask these questions because whenever something seems not to be pleasing to the government, it isn't released. For example, the findings of the helicopter crash, that wasn't released. Now we have the census, and there are other things. What can be done to force the release of these issues?
Well, one can take legal action, but as you would have observed, the government has the tendency not to even bother with the courts when it suits them. So unless there are extra parliamentary or some other form of political pressure, then there's no hope that the government will comply with the law.
Thank you. Mr. Antonio Day.
Good morning to each and everyone. I'm Mr. Norton. Question on the press statement regarding the mining situation. Do you think, sir, that in your years as a politician, do you think that the mining operation should come to an halt, given that there has been reports of non-compliance to occupy, as was the case with Rusal?
It should not come to a halt. Mining contributes significantly to the Guyanese economy, but it is the obligation of the government to ensure that there are clear rules and regulations, and the Ministry of Labor should ensure that they are complied with. As we said in the press statement, there's a problem of enforcement. When a society is as corrupt as the Guyanese society, difficulties emerge in enforcing these laws because people are corrupt from top to bottom and can't challenge corporate institutions that transcend the law. And so here again, it's a problem of governance. Unless we can deal with the corruption and the problems in the system, it's going to be very difficult to enforce the law. When institutions, foreign or local, believe that they can bribe individuals and get past the system, then they do not feel compelled to live by the law. So it becomes a clear question of enforcement and ensuring that you have a system that is legitimate and remove the high level of corruption that characterizes the Guyana system at present.
Thank you.
Mr. Norton, my last question. Your party ad nauseum has been calling for free and credible elections, but the reality is that GCOM, you have raised your concerns about the current composition of GCOM. What would your party do if that composition has not been changed? Because we just had a 2025 election, and your party has been raising that same issue.
As far as I'm
So what are your party going to do going forward?
First thing we need to establish is that the chairman of the Election Commission acted outside of the scope of law. As a judge, she should have known better. She should have known that there's a system put in place over the years in which the election commissioners were appointed permanent. In fact, it was described at the inception of the discussion as a situation where you needed a permanent commission. Having said that, one cannot rule out the need for change. But the chairman of the Election Commission doesn't have the authority to make that change. You know, it's amazing. Let's assume that with the coming of a new opposition leader, changes should be made. Let's make that assumption. Then it should follow logically that not only the commissioner should go, but the chairman. Because if our argument is that the incoming opposition has to be given the opportunity to name the commissioners, then it follows ipso facto that she should go and the incoming opposition leader should be able to name a new elections commission chairman. But what she did is select what she think suits her and protects her. I know she's very uncomfortable, especially with Vincent Alexander, who is very steep in constitutional law and can challenge her. But I think she should also recognize that in the present construct, even if they are chosen by a new opposition leader, the new opposition leader has to consult the entire opposition, of which we are critical, and it doesn't follow that all of the commissioners will go, because we will seek to select who we consider to be the most efficient and effective to represent the smaller party at this stage. And so I believe a lot of what is happening is outside the confines of the law. It is evident that Claudette Singh doesn't like people with intellectual capacity who can challenge her, and therefore I believe in this regard, Vincent Alexander has become a thorn in her side. But she should know by her own actions, she should go.
Thank you.
Ms. Haynes, permit me, if I may, just
Go ahead.
a follow-up question. Mr. Norton, can you confirm at this point, in keeping with the Constitution, that you are the leader of the opposition until one is sworn in, if a meeting has been convened with the Guyana Elections Commission? Because My last conversation with Mr. Alexander, he said that there has not been any meeting facilitated between the two parties. Is this correct?
Now, I am no longer opposition leader. Once the parliament was sworn in, I am no longer opposition leader. That's a fact. Now, I believe that Justice retired Claudette Singh. I'm trying to find language that reflects the reality. She has made herself useless. She has violated the law. And really and truly, the only thing should be on the agenda is that she should go.
Thank you. Floor is still open for questions on the press statement. And any other question at this time?
Yes, I have one.
Go ahead, Mr. Harris.
My question has to do with what is touted as an electronic identification card. Now, the government has announced this electronic ID. Should this matter have gone to Parliament? In the same way as when the question of a national ID came up, Parliament had to make a decision.
Yes, it should have, but in the nature of the PPP, especially Jack Dale, they believe they have the power to do what they like. Only a mass uprising that the people are going to stop them. And they need to be stopped.
Thank you. The floor is still open for questions.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
So is your party happy with the way this electronic ID card is being introduced?
No, you will recall over the years we have objected to it. We believe that there is no proper legal corpus to guide it. Secondly, we have already said that there are no rules governing privacy to ensure personal data is protected. And judging from the 2025 election and the PPP use of data at their disposal, it is an ominous sign that there will be little or no privacy, and it will become a political tool to be used against people who oppose them. I sense by now all Guyanese recognize how the PPP operated. There was a time when Mohammed was a beauty boy. He was in the PPP camp and everything was fine. And now he isn't there. You see what is happening. The problem is there are systemic weaknesses. And while some people enjoy it while they're close to the PPP, they feel they rot when they are separate, or at least supposedly separate. And so what is needed is a society that is governed by rules and with proper institutions to be a counterbalance to executive power. That is what is required.
Thank you. Mr. Antonio Day?
Ms. Haynes, am I allowed to ask a question outside of the...
Yes, you are. You are.
Okay. This question is directed to Mr. Norton. Mr. Norton, given the circumstances that transpired yesterday with the vendors and the erection of the wall, what is your concern as leader of the PNCR, given that Christmas time is coming up?
The PPP has this tendency to engage, to appear to be consulting, and then they move off to do what they think should be done regardless of consultation. In the first place, the government is insensitive to at Christmas time battling with vendors, removing them, and doing the kind of nonsense they're doing across the country. It points to the fact that the government has no interest in ordinary people, in the poor. This is not one-off. Virtually every year, there are confrontations with the government and vendors. And so one has to recognize that the core issue here is that the PPP is concerned with the rich, the elite in this society, and they have little or no concern for the average man out there. Second, the citizens of Georgetown need to recognize that while we welcome beautification, because don't forget, we develop a plan for the reconstruction of the market and the improvement of the entire area. And so we are not opposed to it. What we are opposed to is things being done in an arbitrary way. And that the insensitive nature of the PPP, knowing full well that people would have stocked up for the Christmas and expect to ply their trade, they come with what they're doing. Then the question becomes, why if you are open, you have to come 2 o'clock in the morning? Why if you have nothing to worry about, you have to come 2 o'clock in the morning and put up these barriers? It points to the nefarious intention of the People's Progressive Party. And so I want to draw to people's attention. All of this, I think, is not being done because of the citizens of Georgetown. It is being done in preparation for the local government elections, in which they hope to win Georgetown, a hope which they wouldn't realize. But the citizens of Georgetown must recognize that if the council isn't a counterbalancing force to the PPP, they will do what they like in Georgetown, including taking away your property. Just look at how they handle the seawall improvement project and the amount of people who are there that were removed. And then they bring in their own people and seeking to control and dominate. One has to recognize that the party doesn't operate with the national interest in mind. It operates to satisfy friends, families, and favorites. You get a pause in it when it is coming to elections. But the minute the elections are over, they go back to themselves. That of a political party that is enriching itself and destroying every other group that is in its way.
Thank you. The floor is still open.
Yes. This brings me to the question of the mayor. Now, the mayor of Georgetown, his operation, his role is controlled by chapter, I think it's 1601.
I didn't hear that.
But the government seems to be operating as though there is no mayor. I remember Hamilton Green actually causing some equipment imposed by the government to be detained. Now, what is the power of the mayor? It appears as though he has none. They actually arrested a mayor in Georgetown when this boy, Narayan, joined the vendors outside Georgetown Public Hospital.
Now, the People's Progressive Party has never facilitated providing the resources to any one of the APNU councils in the history of this government. And so there is no interest in ensuring that the people who are elected by the people of Georgetown govern Georgetown. A number of things seems to be happening here. One, the PPP seems to be promoting Manichat, or she's promoting herself. And so she is injected into everything. Now, the danger here is that she is usurping the functions of the city council, which should not be. While we want the beautification of the area, we also want the laws of Guyana to operate. And what they are doing is flouting the rules and regulation, parachuting, and utilizing the resources of the state to give credence to the People's Progressive Party. All they're doing here is trying to score points so that when a local government election comes, they will campaign and say, we did X, Y, and Z. And that is why we're making it very clear that they are ostracizing the council. They are not living by law. What they are doing is operated within a political context to be able to give credit to the government. But the Guyanese population knows well, the people of Georgetown are well aware that the whole approach is to dominate and control and not to ensure that the citizenry enjoy the kind of life that is required. If this government had one iota of interest in local government, they would have ensured that the resources are provided and that they work with the city council to implement. But based on their political agenda, they do not see themselves as working with the elected council. They see themselves as doing everything to destroy the council so that they can get some political capital. It will be challenged.
Thank you. The floor is still open for questions. Mr. Antonio Day.
Mr. Norton, speaking on the context of local government elections, I know that your party has been very proactive in terms of going to different areas and engaging members and residents. The area of the Princess Street, which is not too far from Cemetery Road, you may have seen that the flooding, it has worsened, and road projects are also being facilitated. And many persons have complained about the water continue to rise. What is your concern, given that your party many years ago would have had a robust campaign towards irrigation and maintenance of drainage systems in this country?
Well, do not forget the PPP started from the position that they will make Georgetown dirty so they can take it. It dates back far. They refused to give the resources to pick up garbage, etc. Even while they were building these roads, we were pointing out to them, if you're doing it without proper drainage, you will flood communities. We made that point about All Boys Town, Sussex Street. The government is obsessed with spending money, not spending money effectively and efficiently. And so we are deeply concerned that there's clearly not a proper plan. There is no holistic development plan for the society. The government intervenes when it thinks it is politically in their interest to intervene, but they are not part of a development strategy that is holistic, accompanied by a development plan that will deal with drainage, traffic control, etc. All of those things they pay no attention to. And because they specialize in being ad hoc, these problems will emerge. And that is why I'm not worried. The People's Progressive Party will find difficulty solving the problems of Guyana, including Georgetown, because they are on an infrastructure hype to make money. But it is not part of a well-designed developmental plan that will deal with the critical issues in the society, in the country. And so we will see more of these, but we wouldn't see the resolution of the problems that the city and other communities face. People were telling them about the congestion that will come with the new bridge. No attention was paid to it, and we see what is happening. Development has to be structured. It has to be based on data. It has to be based on an analysis of the problem and allowing professional people to design plans, etc., to solve the problems rather than a program that is influenced by who can make what, how much money they can make, rather than solving the problems of Guyana.
Thank you. The floor is open for like 2 more questions.
If nobody else has a question, I have a quick one.
Go ahead.
Recently, a story broke about stolen vehicles and the transfer of vehicle identification numbers and chassis number and all of that. Sir, has an investigation into that been begun?
I am not aware that the government has begun an investigation, and I don't expect them to. The people you are talking about are people that are close to the PPP. Let us not forget the origins of the Mohammed vehicular problem. They were part and parcel of the PPP. It was permitted, it was allowed. It is only after the political fallout that it became an issue. Now, once these that are involved continue to be close to and supportive of the PPP will have no interest in investigating to get to the bottom of the problem and to solve the problem. They have no interest in that. In fact, I am of the view that the PPP thrives on having people around them who are corrupt so that they can use the corruption as swords of Damocles to keep them in line. And the problem only comes when they step out the line, a la Mohammed.
Thank you. One final question, if anybody has one. Mr. Antonio Day.
Pardon, Mr. Norton, my last one. You know that the festive season is fast approaching, and many persons are complaining about the government not honoring the commitment of the cash transfer. Your thoughts?
The government was never interested in cash transfer. In fact, they call it cash grants. It is we who pointed out very clearly that these are cash transfers. It's the people money, you're transferring back to them. You're already giving them a grant. That's the first thing need to be corrected. Now, the PPP was responding to us during the elections and before the elections. We were calling for the return of free education at UG, which they had stopped in 1994. They came out and made an announcement that UG will be free again as if it was for the first time. When in fact, it is they who took it away in 1994. We were calling for cash transfer. I recall Jack Bill saying, we want to eat out the economy. They were very critical of cash transfers. But when it became popular, they decided they will announce cash transfers so that they can entice a society that they put in poverty. The PPP has deliberately put people in poverty in this country, of all ethnic groups, with the aim of using it for political control. Unfortunately, another one came into the political arena with the resources to exploited it, and we know the outcome. So the reality is they never had an interest in cash transfers. Their interest was in doing what they think necessary to maintain political power. They did that. They are in power. Now they don't feel obligated to deliver it unless political pressure is built up. And so again, the people of Ghana have got to become involved and work with us to pressure the government to ensure that they deliver on their promises, especially the one for cash transfer for the end of this year.
Thank you very much. With that being said, I want to thank our media personnel for joining today's press conference, and of course, our viewing audience and all the social media platforms. We do hope that you have a wonderful weekend as you come to the end of November, and we look forward to seeing you in the new month.